After a sharp escalation in economic pressure, President Trump says Washington is now talking to Cuba's leadership, what he calls the highest people in Cuba, quote unquote, about reaching a deal. Now, he offered few details about what such a deal could look like, but then his comments also coming against the backdrop of the rising tensions and the economic hardship on the island. Speaking to reporters, Trump called Cuba a failing nation that has lost a key source of support, and that's Venezuela. He said Havana now had no oil or money flowing in and hinted that Washington and Cuban officials were in preliminary talks. Not just that, the president said, I'm quoting now, "I think we are going to make a deal with Cuba," without specifying the terms. However, while Trump expressed optimism, he did not really outline what concessions either side could be taking or what issues could be on the negotiating table. But this is a shift following a significant tightening of pressure on the Cuban economy. Remember, in late January, President Trump signed an executive order threatening tariffs on any country that sells oil to Cuba in a move that was basically designed to isolate Havana economically. In addition to that, the U.S. also significantly cut Cuba's access to oil after U.S. forces captured the Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro in early January, severing Cuba's long-standing lifeline as such. Mexico, which became Cuba's main oil supplier in the wake of Venezuela's oil stoppage, has faced mounting pressure from Washington over continued shipments. And the economic impact on the everyday Cubans has been visible on the ground, by the way. Fuel shortages have deepened, leading to long queues at gas stations and widespread power cuts. Cuban officials have condemned the U.S. moves as economic coercion, accusing Washington of trying to asphyxiate the island's economy and interfere in its internal affairs. Lines for basic goods and blackouts have also added further strain to a population that is already facing hardship on the ground under the decades-old communist system reportedly and declining economic output as well. While the U.S. increases pressure, diplomatic dynamics across the region changing as well. The Mexican president has warned that U.S. tariff threats targeting Cuba's oil suppliers could trigger a humanitarian crisis. And Mexico has announced plans to send humanitarian aid, including food and essential products, to Cuba, even as it navigates Washington's pressure. In fact, the leader also said she did not discuss oil shipments with President Trump during recent calls, emphasizing Mexico's humanitarian priorities. Now, this puts Mexico in a rather delicate position, balancing solidarity with Cuba's people while avoiding punitive measures from the U.S. government. And back in Havana, the U.S. State Department has publicly defended its diplomatic efforts. It criticized Cuba's government after small groups of Cubans heckled the U.S. chargé d'affaires, accusing the Cuban authorities of trying to intimidate American diplomats. State Department officials, meanwhile, vowed to continue engaging with the Cuban people despite failed intimidation tactics, quote unquote, by the regime. The U.S. Secretary of State, who is a Cuban American, has long advocated for regime change in Havana, aligning with Trump's tough stance. So what does all of this really add up to? On one hand, you have the U.S. exerting intense economic pressure, threatening tariffs, virtually blocking oil imports, which is a vital resource for Cuba, of course. On the other hand, there is Trump signaling openness to a negotiation, even as Cuba's economy falters. And that could suggest Washington wants leverage at the bargaining table, not just confrontation. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.